Today, this is gonna be a bit of a lengthy video because I want to discuss a specific topic in depth, and it really has to do with sense of urgency, and this really kind of a heightened state of stress when it comes to a situation like finding a job, or needing to buy a house, or you know basically in our lives, we come across situations where we are faced with opportunities, right? And the opportunity may not always feel all that important, right? So, for example, tomorrow you have the opportunity to eat pizza. So that doesn't really make a big impact in your life. But suppose somehow you landed an interview at Google, right? And then suppose you want to really work at Google, and now the pressure is starting to build, right? I need to get it. Man, because if I don't, then I have to wait like a year or two to try an interview again, and then what if what if the next year passes, and then throughout that time I'm gonna be so stressed. So that is kind of it basically raises the stakes a lot. And even when it's not related to jobs, suppose you are, every year there's a cost of life adjustment for jobs, right? So you get like a salary bump. But suppose one year you're planning to move, and then you need to buy a house, and oh man, but the housing market is always going to change, and right now it feels like such a good opportunity to buy a house, but then what if I don't get enough of a raise this year because there's this one house that I really want, but I can't really afford it right now, and the interest rates and everything in terms of that, like the timing is just right, my rent is about to, the contract is about to expire right now, so what if I don't get this right now? And so that again raises the stakes for whatever situation this is. And here's the thing, whenever something is more important, whenever you give something high value, stress has to follow, right? So it's kind of a natural thing. What are you going to eat for lunch tomorrow? That doesn't induce stress because whatever you eat, it's not going to be that life altering. But the bigger kind of desires that you have, they're usually related to big life altering things, right? So, and these feel so important because why? If you don't get it, you're gonna really resent yourself, and if you do get it, it's gonna be so great. So the mechanics of what makes desire high stakes is there's something really big to have been gotten when you get it, and there's a lot of negative consequences if you don't. So this push-pull dynamic of a really high reward and really high risk is what makes things very high stakes. Okay, so why this warrants explanation is many people don't know the reason why they're so stressed about things is precisely because of this mechanic. Because people generally get tunnel visioned on the single issue. So for example, right, the interview process that I described for Google. So people think it's an interview prep problem because that's the most immediately pressing thing that's in your field of vision right now. But it's not really an interview problem. You're not stressed because of the interview. You are stressed because the interview is designed in a way to be high stakes because of the way you look at your life right now. Because your life right now has a lot to gain by working at Google. There's a lot of things you can lose out by not getting at Google. Why? Probably because you hate your life right now. Your life doesn't mean anything right now because you're not working for Google. This is how a lot of people think, right? This is how I used to think. When I had all these interviews lined up for big companies, I was so stressed out because if I didn't get these jobs, if I didn't work for big companies, then I'm a failure, right? I went to all these I went to Ivy League school, and I went to grad school, and I have a graduate degree, and then if I can't even work in these kinds of a top level companies, then what the fuck am I alive for? this is precisely the kind of mind that generates problems. So it's not an interview problem. It's a how you look at life kind of a problem that invites stress. So coming back to the buying a house and the moving example, right? We think it's like, oh, what if I don't get promoted? What if I don't get enough of a salary raise this year? We think it's a salary and a review and evaluation problem, but it's not. It's actually us thinking our current life is really bad, and this opportunity is just so good. It'll really elevate my life, and I'm gonna hate myself if I don't elevate, if I lose out on this chance. And that is what makes this situation so stressful. But the thing is, then you just gotta give up, right? So if you don't want to be stressed, then you gotta give up. Then you have to be willing to accept the possibility that, you know what, might not get it. I might, but I might not get it, right? So I was talking about coding interviews with my colleague slash friend. And we were talking about, I wonder if you could, try this question. And then we were just exchanging some coding problems, right? And then as we were exchanging coding problems, I thought about, my experience when I was trying to apply for jobs and such. And I remembered I wasn't able to answer all the questions, right? So think about this. You solve 10 random coding questions. And if you're able to solve 5, then I'd say, looking at my life now, it's like a 50% chance of passing a coding interview test. Because I may know 90% of the questions, right? But there's always a chance that I'm asked the 5% that I don't know really well. So, it's a percentage game, right? So if I do 10 simple problems and I can do, I can do 50% of them, I can get 5 of them right. Then you know what? Realistically, if I apply for 10 jobs, chances are I might get 5 offers, or I might pass at least 5 of the coding interview questions. I mean, coding interview rounds. So that's sort of how I think about it now. But I remember it not being like this before, because before everything was so high stakes. I couldn't even fathom the possibility of job searches being percentage wise, because why? Everything is like a life and death kind of a moment for me. So I always think, I really want this job. So how much do I really need to study to guarantee this? Unfortunately, there's no answer to that, because there's no guarantees. There's always a chance you might be asked something you don't know. And when you don't give yourself the realistic input that, hey, there might be something I don't know, but instead that judgment is clouded by, I have to know this in order to get this job, then guess what happens during the interview? And they ask you something that you might not know. It's immediately visible in your face, that the panic, right? And I remember having so many stomach ulcers, and one time I needed to, mid-interview, I needed to go to the restroom to have, IBS, right? These are things that really fuck up your life. So, now that you understand the mechanics of it, if it's still that important to you, right? I'm not trying to alter your life. I'm not trying to say, so come on, don't be stressed out. No, it's okay. It's your life, right? But if it is actually that important to you, I think it's valuable to go out in life at least once and really care that much about something, right? I think that's a nice learning experience. So if you want to, spend this era of your life trying for something really hard and making something really high stakes just so you get the living experience out of it, I'm saying understand the mechanics of what makes that work. Understand the mechanics of what makes stress work. It's probably not the immediate thing that you're tackling at the moment. It's gonna be something that's bigger about how you perceive your life in general. But with that, right? I think a very underrated skill is learning to sell at a loss. When we make an investment, right? Preparing for interviews and buying a house, these are investments. We never want to make an investment that would be a net loss for us, right? That doesn't make any sense. So if I tell you, hey, there's an investment opportunity and you're guaranteed a loss, you wouldn't invest in that. You would just hold on to your money, right? You would just get the bank interest. So because bank interest is always this like stable thing that you always get with your lump sum of money, investments always have to be reasonably have a higher kind of possibility and a chance at a rate of return that's higher than the bank investment. But with any chance, there comes a chance of a loss, right? Okay, so there's this, suppose you put all your savings into this company called CrowdStrike, which is a company that had a massive technology failure like a few months ago, right? Okay, so suppose you just put it in. And you first heard of the news, right? CrowdStrike causes global IT errors, and especially in the US in the airplane-like sector, all the flights are down. And the airports can't get their systems back up. Okay, so you get this news, right? So after you bought it, it's gonna dip. But what's gonna happen when you don't sell at a loss? It's gonna keep going down, right? The first moment you realize that this is really some big shit news, gotta sell it, right? That's a strategy. You have to know when to cut your losses. Because why? What happens when you don't? Like, it's just gonna keep going down. Of course it can go up, but like that's a really catastrophic thing that happened to CrowdStrike, right? And a lot of industries fall like that, like Enron in the 90s. I think it's 90s. It's like this massive oil company, but then plummeted. But if you hold on to it because, no, I haven't made a profit from this investment yet, you are just going to sink with it. So, when we look at loss, we look at it as a loss because we think we need to make a profit. So, of course, okay, so this is the amount you invested. This is your baseline, right? And this is what you want. So, of course, compared to this, you're selling at a loss. So this is the loss that you feel like. And as humans, we're all loss averse, right? So when you look at this much loss, it's like, no, I don't want that. I want this, I'm willing to accept. But I don't want this. So you keep trying to make things work so that you can get to the amount of ROI that you want. But life doesn't guarantee that, right? So when you flip the perspective, right? Okay, so this is your desired outcome. But this is what it's gonna be if you don't move. If you don't make a move right now, this is what it's gonna be. So when you sell here, when you cut your losses here, right? Then this is the net benefit that you get. Because this is the net loss you would have had, right? But by acting early, by cutting your loss, by selling at a loss, you gained this much. And that kind of a perspective shift is what makes for successful investors, right? So you look at any investment book, you look at any investment advice, there's always a big section about selling at a loss, right? Like I think based on my research, there's like the 20% rule, right? They always have a recommendation to, hey, so if you have this 20% stock goes down, put an automatic sell on it so that you cut your losses. And basically this is what makes a successful investor versus not, right? This the ability to shift your mind to not just look at your desired outcomes, but to be able to look at the perspective of complete loss and salvaging from that complete loss. So why that's important? Okay, so yeah, this next job opportunity at Google, very important to you, right? But what if you don't get it? Then how long are you willing to feel bad? When you look at my YouTube channel, go to the early videos. There's a coaching session that I did with a person who wants to be a doctor. But they failed the doctor exam twice, right? And now they don't know what to do with their life, because I think at the time, based on my understanding, they can't take any more of this test because the 2 is like the maximum number of tries or something. But the thing is, there's other ways to be doctors. But this person at the time was so stuck in the mentality that no, but German medical schools are the best because I already live here and the tuition is good, but other methods aren't gonna work. Okay, so the longer you keep holding on to that, right, the bigger your losses become. You have to be able to draw the line of, okay, you know what? That ship has already sailed. And I learned that, you know what? This high stress environment, it just makes things worse. It didn't really make me get higher scores. It just made me worse. So, what's my goal? The end game for me is to be a doctor, right? Okay, so I'm gonna look at other ways. Although it may be expensive, although it may be more time consuming than the German version, I need to be doing that. Or, you know what? I gave it an honest try, but you know what? I may come back to this dream in the future, but time for me to do some real life things that give me immediate money to pay rent and things like that. If you don't have that ability to shift, you go down to the net complete loss. And as you are contemplating, should I stay in here, although this is stressful, or not? I would really like for you to consider selling at a loss and being able to somewhat objectively, look at your life. Pretend you're someone else and you're talking to yourself and talk about your situation. If it was a third party, would you encourage them to continue or not? Just look at that, and at least having this evaluation kind of a perspective can give you enough information in your life so you may potentially be able to shift.